Okay, let's unpack this. What is it about death that makes it the king of terrors for so many of us? It's arguably the most universal human experience, isn't it?
Mm,
Every single one of us will face it.
absolutely. It's the great unknown, I suppose.
Yeah, and yet it remains shrouded in so much fear, so much unspoken anxiety. We often dread, the physical pain of dying, the terrifying unknown of what comes after,
Hmm.
and perhaps most profoundly, the heartbreaking reality of leaving loved ones behind. It truly is a topic that touches everyone, whether they choose to acknowledge it or not.
And what's truly compelling here, I think, is how our primary source material for this deep dive, Dion Fortune's work, Through the Gates of Death, it directly confronts these fears. It really challenges them.
How so?
Well, it posits this quite revolutionary idea
Hmm.
that knowledge itself is the ultimate tool. It's the great gift, really, to conquer the dread of death.
Knowledge is the antidote to fear.
Precisely. This isn't about denying grief, not at all, or the profound sense of loss that comes with death. That's natural. Instead, it offers a deep, transformative understanding. It aims to convert that deep-seated fear into a sense of, well, empowering knowledge, clarity, even.
That's a really profound distinction right there. So our mission today, then, is to embark on a deep dive into this unique esoteric perspective. We're going on a journey, essentially, to explore death not merely as a final end, but as a universal, natural, and surprisingly transformative process.
Exactly. We'll delve into some ancient mysteries, look at the spherical mechanics of transition.
And examine the very nature of consciousness beyond the physical body, right?
Right. It's an exploration designed to give you, our listener, insights that could fundamentally alter your perception of life's ultimate journey.
Hopefully turning apprehension into understanding.
That's the goal.
Okay, so let's begin with this first concept, exploring death as the great anesthetist. That's a phrase from the text, right?
It is. It's a core idea.
And it radically redefines our understanding of this natural and universal experience.
Hmm.
The core tenet is strikingly direct.
Mhm.
Death is a universal experience. No one can hope to escape.
Undeniable.
Absolutely. It's an undeniable truth. Yet our societal conditioning, often frames death as this formidable, terrifying enemy, something to be fought, resisted at all costs.
The enemy.
But what if that perspective is fundamentally flawed? What if death isn't a struggle, but actually a gentle, even merciful process?
Well, that's exactly what the text suggests. It makes a bold and, I think, incredibly comforting assertion for many that deathbeds are peaceful when the time comes and few souls go out struggling.
Peaceful. That really counters the common image, doesn't it?
It directly counters that primal fear of physical pain. It suggests that, for most, the physical departure is eased by something akin to a divine or natural anesthesia.
The great anesthetist.
Exactly. The idea is that as the soul prepares to leave the body, a natural process, like a profound, peaceful sleep, descends. It effectively dulls any sensation of pain or struggle.
So the body just lets go.
It's the body simply letting go, naturally, without the conscious awareness enduring discomfort. That's the picture it paints.
That certainly reframes the deathbed scene for many. And if we consider the root of our fear, the text pinpoints it largely as the unknown, which makes sense.
It does, and this aligns perfectly with ancient wisdom traditions, particularly the Greek mysteries.
Ah, yes. The mysteries.
These weren't just philosophical schools, remember? They were practical systems of initiation, and their great gift to initiates was precisely release from the fear of death.
Imagine that. An entire spiritual path dedicated to preparing people to cross the threshold. That boundary between life and death without dread.
It wasn't about denying death, not at all. It was about understanding its mechanics, its nature, so thoroughly that it just ceased to be a source of terror.
So the knowledge itself stripped away the unknown.
And therefore stripped away the fear. Yes.
Okay, I see.
And the text emphasizes that being, quote, uninstructed by the mysteries leads to what it calls the error of death.
The error of death. What does that mean?
It highlights how a deeper, esoteric understanding of these natural cycles fundamentally robs the unseen of its shadows. It implies that our conventional perception of death as, an abyss of nothingness or suffering is a grave misunderstanding, born from ignorance, essentially.
So the fear isn't of death itself, but of what we don't know about it.
Exactly. When that knowledge is imparted, the shadows theoretically dissipate.
And this wasn't just theoretical knowledge for these ancient initiates, was it?
Yeah.
The Force gives a really fascinating example. The Great Pyramid of Giza.
Right. The empty coffin.
Exactly. It's described not as a burial tomb, as many people think, but as an empty stone coffin. a powerful symbolic passage.
Yeah.
This pharaoh who never occupied it represents the journey of the initiated, a conscious traversal of that boundary between worlds.
It's a profound image, isn't it? It suggests death isn't just something that passively happens to you,
Right.
but something you can learn to understand, maybe even navigate with intention.
Facing that ultimate transition with knowledge, not blind fear.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
Indeed. And this profound knowledge, cultivated through these mysteries, allows an individual to grasp the true nature of reascending into the invisible world through what are simply understood as the familiar gates of birth and death. It's not a one-way street.
So part of a cycle.
Exactly, an integral part of a larger ongoing process. This perspective connects death to the rhythmical cyclic tide of evolving life. It suggests existence isn't a finite line, but a continuous flowing current between different states of being.
Like the tides.
Very much like the ebb and flow of ocean tides. We simply transition from one realm to another. Death, in this view, is merely a return journey, a kind of embarking on a familiar vessel after time spent on foreign shores. A return, it's natural, inevitable, and ultimately, from this perspective, beneficial, part of a much grander ongoing cycle of consciousness.
So if we really grasp this understanding, the insight here is huge. Death isn't a final terrifying ending, but actually a new beginning.
A bright awakening for the soul, as the text puts it.
A bright awakening, I like that.
The text vividly describes it as a liberation from our earthly coils. Very much like waking from a long, deep dream or a night's sleep.
Okay.
The soul is seen as gently shedding its mortal coil, the physical body, and then entering a new day, embracing a new phase of existence on a different plane.
So it paints a picture of release and refreshment, not sorrow or oblivion.
Exactly. Serene release, profound refreshment. The core idea is that you're not disappearing. You are simply moving on, maybe to your own true home, revitalized and prepared for what comes next in your ongoing spiritual evolution.
That is a complete paradigm shift from the typical modern view, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Worlds apart.
Okay, let's transition now into crossing the threshold. This is part 2 of our deep dive, where we get into the mechanics of this transition.
Right. The nitty-gritty, so to speak. This is where the esoteric knowledge really distinguishes itself, moving far beyond medical science, as the text puts it. Medical science is amazing, obviously, understanding the physical side of life and death, but it does reach its limits in the death chamber, doesn't it? It can't really say what happens to consciousness.
It can describe the cessation of biological function, yes, but not the subjective experience, if any.
And while religion might offer comforting, albeit sometimes vague hope about an afterlife, this text claims to provide concrete experiential insights into the hidden life of the soul. It asserts this knowledge isn't based on blind faith, but on, well, observations and experiences.
That's a crucial distinction it makes, yes. It offers a detailed process of dissolution, and importantly, it differentiates between natural death and violent death.
Okay, how does it describe those?
Natural death is depicted as a gradual putting off of the flesh, a gentle, almost imperceptible process. The soul, according to the source, slowly loosens its hold on the physical body, like a child's milk teeth painlessly falling out when the time is right. That's the kind of analogy used. It's a gentle, unforced separation. Consciousness is gradually withdrawn without distress.
Okay, that makes sense. But violent death.
Violent death, conversely, is described as a shock or a wrench, akin to the pulling of a tooth by the dentist, sudden, abrupt, often with physical trauma.
Right. That sounds much more like our common fears.
It does. However, even in these instances, the text assures us that the merciful angel, or more universally, the great anesthetist, plays a vital role.
Ah, the anesthetist again.
Yes, this benevolent force shields consciousness. It ensures that the physical dismantling, as it's put, is painless for the soul itself.
So the pain is more immediate physical shock, or for witnesses.
That's the suggestion. The pain associated with violent death is more about the trauma experienced by living witnesses or the brief, immediate physical shock rather than the enduring experience of the dying soul. Its awareness is quickly protected and sort of elevated.
That brings us to a truly fascinating concept, the etheric double, and this idea of consciousness transfer. Can you unpack the etheric double a bit?
Sure. The text introduces the etheric double, sometimes called the body of light, as a subtle energetic counterpart. It's intimately connected to the physical body. It's described as being the magnetic aspect, sort of the energetic scaffolding that holds the physical form together. And this double is what's gently anesthetized during the physical processes of death.
Okay, so the energy body is numbed.
Right. And the crucial, really transformative insight here is that consciousness isn't lost. It's not extinguished during death.
It continues.
Instead, your entire awareness, your sense of self, your memories, your personality are transferred from the physical body to the soul and retained unimpaired.
Wow. Okay, unimpaired. Imagine that. Your self-awareness, who you are, continues completely intact, just in a different vehicle.
That's the model presented, yes.
What becomes clear then is this remarkable continuity of consciousness.
Mhm.
So once consciousness is transferred, the soul can access these inner planes. What are those exactly?
Well, they aren't physical locations in our usual 3D sense. They're described more as non-physical dimensions or realms of existence.
Planes of thought, emotion.
Exactly. Planes of thought, emotion, spiritual energy. And here, the soul finds its own place. It interacts with its deeper, unconscious aspects and the broader, subtle environment.
How can we relate to that? It sounds quite abstract.
The text provides a helpful analogy: sleep.
Ah, okay.
Just as the soul is believed by some traditions to leave the body during deep sleep and return upon waking, death is presented as a greater, more permanent version of this nightly transition.
So our nightly journeys are like practice runs.
In a way, yes. They can be seen as preparatory experiences for this ultimate journey, making the transition feel less alien, perhaps more like a familiar, though much grander, shift in state.
Okay, so if consciousness is retained, transferred seamlessly, where does it go? What does this inner plane or heaven world actually feel like, according to the text?
Well, the text boldly dismisses the common, often vague notion of a heaven world as just a distant, nebulous hope.
Right, sometimes it feels very undefined.
Instead, it describes it as a definite place, not a vague void, but a tangible realm.
With other people.
Yes, where departed friends and relatives await, forming a strong bond of love. It's depicted as a vibrant, conscious community.
That's comforting.
And the knowledge shared in this text, it says, helps you understand that the heaven world will prove to be unfamiliar to us, seeming rather like the home of early childhood revisited.
Oh, interesting imagery, like coming home.
Exactly, suggesting not something alien, but a place of deep familiarity, comfort, perhaps rediscovering connections that predate our current earthly life, a sense of truly coming home.
All right, let's explore these realms beyond now, part 3, where we look specifically at purgatory and the heaven world through this esoteric lens. This is where things get really nuanced, I imagine.
They do. It challenges many conventional understandings, particularly of purgatory.
Okay, so our source material discusses purgatory, but how? Not the fire and brimstone version.
Definitely not. It's clarified not as a place of eternal punishment, but as an intermediate and transitional state. It's distinct from the immediate deathbed experience we just discussed.
So, like a waiting room.
More like a landing stage is one description, a necessary process of purification, even a form of psychic quarantine.
Quarantine for what?
Its purpose is to cleanse the soul from its residual attachments to disembodied life, meaning earthly desires, unresolved emotions, mental patterns that might bind it to the lower planes.
So it's not about punishment for sins.
No, it's presented as a necessary process of energetic adjustment, releasing attachments. And this raises a critical question. If purgatory isn't about punishment, then what's truly essential to grasp here is its profound transformative purpose.
Which is?
To purify the soul, to remove the dross, the impurities, and allow it to adjust its energetic balance. The text explicitly states that the popular notion of fires of eternal torment is a fundamental misunderstanding.
Okay, so what is this purification related to?
Often, it's related to the resolution of unresolved karma or karmic patterns from the life just lived. It's a process of integrating lessons and releasing those attachments we mentioned.
Right, learning and letting go.
Which underscores the idea that there is always more to learn, and that multiple perspectives enrich understanding on these complex post-mortem states. It's a phase where the soul reevaluates its life, aligning itself more closely with spiritual standards.
And does it connect to things people do on Earth? Like prayers for the dead?
Remarkably, yes. The text acknowledges the genuine value of traditional practices like masses and prayers for the dead. It notes that occultists, despite their different framework, recognize their positive effect in aiding the departed to adjust and progress through this vital stage.
Interesting that different traditions might arrive at similar practices. So what does this purification actually feel like for the soul? If it's not fire, what is it?
The text describes the soul's experience in purgatory as a dream state, a deeply immersive, subjective reality.
The dream state.
Here, the soul actively reviews its life from the standpoint of fulfilled or frustrated desires within what's called the world of desire.
The world of desire.
Not a physical place, but a subtle realm where emotions, longings, and attachments are processed. And because, as the text says, the brain no longer clogs consciousness.
No physical brain interference.
Right. The soul's higher consciousness can guide it in this severe struggle, their words to align with spiritual standards. It's a profound process of self-assessment, reevaluating one's earthly choices and their energetic consequences.
Leading to an inner adjustment, not an external judgment.
Exactly, a self-cleansing through understanding.
And this profound process eventually leads the soul towards the heaven world. How does the text redefine that?
It contrasts common, often simplistic misconceptions of heaven. The idea of a specific, static place with mundane activities.
Like floating on clouds. Or the spiritualist accounts.
Exactly, like the accounts of Raymond smoking cigars, which depicted the afterlife in surprisingly earthly terms.
Right.
Instead, the esoteric view presents the heaven world primarily as a state of consciousness, a realm of pure mind, operating independently of our physical notions of time and space.
A state of consciousness. That's much more profound than a postcode in the sky.
Much more. And this understanding, it suggests, isn't new. Ancient traditions from Egypt to Cathay, ancient China, also reflected this view. They perceived the afterlife as an interior, refined landscape of the soul, a state of enlightened awareness.
That's a truly significant shift in perspective, from a physical place to a state of being. How does the text elaborate on that?
It builds on this by describing the heaven world as a great hospital for souls. But the journey isn't static, it's progressive.
Progressive how?
Souls move from a hospital for sick souls, which is purgatory, where the healing and cleansing happens. Then they progress to a convalescent home, a period of rest and assimilation after the purgatorial process.
Okay, rest and recovery.
And finally to a school for further spiritual development and learning.
That's cool. So learning continues.
It's presented as a structured, ongoing journey of healing, growth, and continuous spiritual evolution.
What about other views, like, say, the Islamic view of paradise?
Well, in this specific esoteric framework, concepts like the traditional Islamic view focusing on sensuous gratification are presented as contrasting views. The text implies they don't necessarily represent the highest great force for good within this particular understanding of spiritual evolution.
So the emphasis here is consistently on purification, growth, expansion of consciousness.
That's the core focus, yes.
Okay, let's transition now to part 4. Interplanar connections, communication, and grief. This feels like it gets into very sensitive territory.
It does. This section delves into what is often one of the most emotional and certainly one of the most controversial aspects, the vexed question of communication with the departed.
Vexed is a good word for it.
The text acknowledges the widespread concerns: fraud, manipulation, the ethical question of whether it's even appropriate or blasphemy, as some might see it, to attempt contact.
Yeah, it's an area fraught with sensitivities, and let's face it, a lot of potential for exploitation.
Absolutely, which is why the text wisely navigates this by advocating for a middle way of wisdom.
A middle way.
It states that communication is possible, but it explicitly warns that it requires extreme caution, careful discernment, and a genuine psychic rapport, a sensitive, attuned connection, not just a desperate desire.
Okay, discernment is key.
Crucially, it emphasizes that the living should never attempt to recall the departed through, say, self-sacrifice or excessive grief. Nor should we perceive the departed soul as an empty vessel just waiting for us.
Why not? What's the danger?
Such attempts, born of our own personal longing, can actually hinder the departed's essential work and progress on their own journey. Their transition is their unique spiritual task, and our interference, however well-intentioned, can be detrimental.
So it's about not hindering their work. That's a really insightful way to put it. They have things to do.
Exactly. The text makes it abundantly clear that the dead have their own work to do in the unseen realms, and the living are encouraged to allow them to proceed freely, without emotional entanglement holding them back.
Does it distinguish between types of communication?
Yes, it carefully differentiates. There's received communication, which originates from the departed soul to the living. This often comes passively, like a sudden clear thought, a strong feeling, a vivid dream.
Spontaneous stuff.
Right. Often spontaneous and can be welcomed. Then there's active communication, which comes from the living towards them, like deliberate prayer, focused thought, maybe rituals.
And that needs more care.
Yes, that latter form needs careful consideration to ensure it's truly supportive of their journey and not just binding them to earthly concerns out of our own need. The source suggests that active, desperate attempts to pull them back can indeed cause distress to the transitioning soul.
This leads us straight into the challenge of transforming grief through knowledge. This feels like one of the most practical takeaways.
I agree. Grief is acknowledged as completely natural, one of the greatest tests of our spiritual understanding. A raw, deeply human experience. It cannot and should not be denied or suppressed.
Of course not.
However, the text proposes that a deeper understanding, the kind we've been discussing, about the soul's continued existence and its ongoing spiritual journey, can profoundly transform the experience of bereavement.
How so? How does it transform it?
It shifts it from potentially being a paralyzing, binding sorrow into something more constructive, something that enables both the living and the departed to move forward.
So what does this mean for those of us struggling with that agonizing pain of loss? It sounds challenging.
It is challenging, but potentially liberating. The perspective offered is that our grief, while undeniably natural and intensely painful, can be seen as partly selfish. And that's a hard word to hear in that context.
It is.
If it binds the departed soul to earthly attachments and hinders its progress.
Because true love wants what's best for them.
Exactly. The text argues that true love is ultimately spiritual, not merely emotional or possessive. While the love of kind and bereaved provides a vital sheet anchor, offering stability for those left behind, true spiritual love encourages the soul to ascend freely. It doesn't constrain them with earthly ties and the emotional gravity of the living. It's about letting go with profound love, enabling their progress, not holding them back out of our own pain.
Okay, that's a very high bar, but I see the distinction. Letting go is an act of love.
Precisely. And this understanding culminates in the concept of spiritual communion. The text emphasizes this can truly continue after physical death.
Spiritual communion.
Yes, it highlights the intangible influence of love as a powerful bond that transcends physical planes, even the veil of death.
So the connection isn't totally severed.
Not the deeper spiritual connection through pure, selfless love. That can persist. This offers profound comfort, a sense of continuity. It's not about recalling them back here, but rather elevating our own consciousness and our love to meet them in their new reality, fostering a connection based on shared spiritual purpose, not just earthly longing.
A bond across planes.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thought. Now we enter a particularly intriguing, maybe unsettling section. Part 5, understanding the pathologies of death. What does that mean?
This concept refers to instances where the natural process of death, which we've discussed as ideally gentle and merciful, doesn't run smoothly. It gets disrupted.
Okay, and this can lead to complications.
Significant complications for the departing soul, according to the text. It details 2 main points of concern. First, the state of mind of the person dying is absolutely paramount.
Their thoughts and feelings at the time.
Yes. An intense, unresolved mental or emotional state, terror, hatred, extreme attachment, can prevent them from falling into that natural sleep of death and passing on safely.
And the second concern.
The consequence of this can be the soul lingering in an intermediate state, unable to fully transition to its proper resting or processing phase, stuck, essentially.
And this has knock-on effects.
The text suggests a direct consequence. This might be why some souls are malpresent, meaning they are born into the next life with inherent suffering, physical ailments, or deep-seated psychological issues. It implies a direct karmic or energetic carryover from a difficult or incomplete prior transition.
Wow, so the way you die can impact your next life. That's a heavy thought.
It's a fascinating and sobering idea, isn't it? That the moment of death can have such lasting repercussions. The text identifies intense fear as a primary cause of these pathologies, a significant disruptor.
Fear what specifically?
It includes the fear stemming from being a victim, particularly of a violent attack. The text mentions fear of the person who will not go to meet death, referring to an attacker, or just the overwhelming generalized fear of death itself.
Right.
The source explains how the souls of innocent victims, especially those who die violently and unexpectedly, are often kept from the natural sleep of death by their own intense terror or shock.
That's tragic. Is there any help for them?
In such distressing cases, the text asserts that invisible helpers, spiritual entities, benevolent forces, are said to actively work to assist them,
Yeah.
gently guiding these traumatized souls to their rightful place of rest and healing. Furthermore, the text discusses the lingering thought form of fear that can imprint itself upon places of violent death or crime. The powerful emotional energy can persist, affecting the living, contributing to that feeling of dread or unease some people report in such locations.
Like a psychic residue.
Something like that, yes.
This really suggests a collective responsibility, doesn't it? A subtle, energetic connection. Which brings us to the role of ritual and support. How can the living help?
The text introduces a specific practice, the ritual for the peace of the soul, as one means to help those who suffered sudden or violent death.
And this isn't just about comforting the living.
No, it's presented as a framework for actively assisting the departed soul in finding rest, providing positive energy, if you like. The text also points to the Catholic tradition of masses for the dead as a well-known example.
Right, masses for the dead.
It suggests such practices have a tangible, positive, energetic effect beyond mere religious observance. They provide a conduit of benevolent thought and prayer that aids the soul's journey. So if we connect this to the bigger picture, it really suggests that our mental and spiritual state at the moment of death, and crucially, the conscious, loving support from the living, can profoundly impact the soul's journey.
That makes critical thinking about all this essential, doesn't it? Especially
Yeah.
with so much information and misinformation out there.
Absolutely. It encourages us to consider these less conventional but perhaps deeply insightful esoteric perspectives. And importantly, the text also introduces the concept of psychic self-defense for the living.
Self-defense. From what?
It isn't about warding off evil spirits in a sensational way. It's more a practical means to protect one's own energetic boundaries, to avoid inadvertently becoming conduits for distress, confusion, or lingering energies from the departed, especially if their transition was difficult.
So, maintaining your own balance while still being compassionate.
Exactly. Maintaining one's own spiritual integrity while still offering benevolent support.
And finally, within these pathologies, the text describes the second death and delayed consciousness. What's the second death? Sounds ominous.
It's not a literal annihilation. It refers to a crucial stage in the normal process. The soul's deep sleep and its necessary passage into what's described as the deepest unconsciousness on the inner planes.
The deepest unconsciousness. Why is that needed?
It's presented as a period of vital rest and energetic recalibration, essential for true rebirth and further spiritual integration before moving on, like a system reboot, perhaps?
Okay, and delayed consciousness.
That refers to cases where severe injury or profound shock at the time of earthly death can cause a soul to linger unconscious upon the inner planes for extended periods, months, even years, the text suggests, stuck in that deep sleep state.
Unable to complete the process.
Right, which underscores the crucial importance of mental, emotional, and spiritual preparation for death. A conscious, peaceful transition at the time of physical departure is vital. It facilitates the soul's next phase without unnecessary delay or prolonged suffering in that unconscious state.
Now for our final section, part 6. The Adept's Approach, Mastering the Transition. This sounds like the ideal scenario.
It represents the pinnacle of understanding presented in Dion Fortune's text, yes. An adept is introduced as someone who has essentially overcome death.
How? By avoiding it.
No, not by avoiding it physically, but through profound esoteric knowledge, rigorous self-discipline, and deep spiritual practice. It's not about escaping the inevitable physical end, but mastering its actuality, understanding its mechanics, and making a conscious, deliberate transition.
So they know what's happening.
Exactly. The adept is presented as someone familiar with their own memories of past lives, showing that continuity of consciousness across incarnations, and has disciplined themselves to withdraw their consciousness consciously to their higher self in meditation.
So they're not fearful because they understand it intimately.
Precisely. They've explored these realms through their spiritual work. Death holds no terror of the unknown for them. And what's truly compelling here is the element of conscious choice. The text details how the adept knows precisely when the time has now come to go out, and actively chooses to do so.
They decide when to leave.
That's the implication. Their physical body is viewed not as their ultimate self, but as a serviceable machine, an observation post, a temporary vehicle for their soul's work on Earth.
So it can be repaired or discarded?
Yes, if its purpose isn't complete, it might be maintained, but ultimately it can be consciously discarded when its utility has served its course. The adept accepts death freely and without cavilling, without complaint or resistance.
Because their work is done.
Having meticulously completed their task upon Earth and being, as the text puts it, summoned to go up higher, to a higher plane of service or evolution, it transforms death from an imposed fate into a deliberate, intentional act of transition, a purposeful continuation of their spiritual journey.
The text even uses some incredibly evocative symbolic imagery for this conscious departure, doesn't it? It paints a vivid picture.
It does. It speaks of the loosening of the silver cord.
The connection between soul and body.
Yes, that vital spiritual link maintaining life. And the breaking the golden bowl, symbolizing the final complete separation of the spirit from the material form.
These aren't just poetic metaphors, then.
They're presented as describing the precise, deliberate mechanics of a controlled, intentional transition. The adept consciously disengages from the physical. It really emphasizes the paramount importance of pure, unconditional love and deep understanding in this process.
From those around them, too.
Yes, both for the departing soul and for those remaining. The quality of the surrounding emotional and energetic field can profoundly facilitate this smooth, conscious passage. And the adept's approach isn't a sudden thing. It's not a last-minute realization.
It's prepared.
It is the culmination of long years of discipline, rigorous spiritual practice, and what the text describes as laying up treasure in heaven.
Meaning spiritual development.
Exactly. The accumulation of spiritual merit, wisdom, inner development throughout their life. This ongoing preparation ensures they are truly ready for their next phase.
How does the actual process look?
It involves intense, deep meditation during the dying process itself, often accompanied by specific symbolic rituals performed by their spiritual community. The text mentions using candles.
Representing light, consciousness.
Precisely. And the invocation of 4 archangels, often identified symbolically as Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, perhaps representing protective or guiding principles, seen as spiritual guardians of the death chamber, helping to ease the passage, ensure a peaceful, protected transition.
It's a testament to the idea that for the spiritually prepared, death isn't fearful, but a deeply purposeful, consciously navigated journey.
That's the essence of the adept's approach.
Okay, wow. We've unpacked a truly immense amount today, fundamentally shifting perspective, I think. We've journeyed from that deep ingrained human terror of the unknown to seeing death as the great anesthetist, a gentle and purposeful journey. We've explored how ancient Greek mysteries offered release from fear, how consciousness persists unimpaired.
Right, the consolidity.
How purgatory and heaven world are seen as states of purification and growth, not punishment.
Progressive states.
We've also touched on the intricate ways our grief can affect the departed, and finally, how spiritual adepts consciously approach their final transition as a deliberate act. It truly is a dramatic shift, isn't it? Transforming fear into understanding.
This deep dive certainly raises an important question, doesn't it? How does understanding these profound esoteric principles, from the etheric double to purgatory's purpose, how does it encourage critical thinking, not just about death, but about life itself?
That's the real takeaway, maybe?
I think so. This knowledge isn't simply about alleviating our fears of dying or helping us process grief with a new understanding, valuable as that is. More importantly, it profoundly reframes how we live our lives right now.
Because if death is a conscious journey,
Exactly. If it's a conscious journey and a purposeful transition, it compels us to reevaluate our daily actions, our intentions, our very state of being in this life. It powerfully suggests that the quality of our current consciousness, the spiritual dross we accumulate, or the treasure we lay up, directly and profoundly shapes our experience through the gates of death.
So perhaps the final thought for you, our listener, is this. If death is truly a conscious journey, an ultimate adventure into the unseen, what steps might you begin to take today to better prepare for that inevitable and profound transition?